If you do not have the physical strength to control Michael Chandler on the ground, Dustin Poirier is going to rip you to pieces. Poirier has a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's an excellent defensive jiu-jitsu artist. Plus, I reckon he would win an arm wrestle 10 times out of 10 against Charlie Oliveira. Welcome to Monkey Knife Fights coverage of UFC 269, our pre-fight show. AJ Schullo, Connor Rowntree, we're back in action, and we are happy to be back. AJ, it's been a minute. Lots of things happened in the UFC, so let's just get, we'll call it the State of the Union. Give me a little address, if you will, on the state of the UFC as you would see it.
Oh, it's beautiful to be back. Last pay-per-view event of 2021, second to last pay-per-view event, just period, as is, of the year. Yeah, it's a great time to be a fight fan. We've had so many weeks this year with just a fight card on it, so it's going to be a little weird after next week to have a bit of a break. I think this is one of the more successful years of the company, just when you consider the state of affairs of just, we've been pretty restricted on where we could go location wise. The UFC events at Apex seem to be coming to a conclusion starting next March, as there is an event scheduled for Ohio as well. So I think the UFC, they get an A++ in my book. They've been able to work the most with what they got. They've been putting together the best fights. In this Saturday, we have a very highly anticipated fight for the lightweight title, amongst others that are tremendously stacked. Even on the prelims, we have some ranked fighters. So looking to dive in with it with you.
Well, let's do a little buy and sell segment now. It's been a minute. There's been a lot of rumblings around the UFC. Obviously, Conor McGregor's name, one of the most polarizing figures in all of sports. It's been thrown around. He's been fighting DJs and whatnot. But the immediate title shot for Conor McGregor on the comeback, do you buy or sell on that?
I sell. I definitely do sell. And I think the UFC would be smart to book somebody against Conor that he could beat. Maybe a guy like a Michael Chandler type, a guy that's, pretty hittable defensively that Conor can maybe get a finish. Don't get me wrong, it's still a risky fight. Or even a Tony Ferguson type, who a guy that's been on a bit of a decline here, and a guy that's always mouthed back and forth with Conor. That's a winnable fight for him because Ferguson is so crazy hittable and everything. So I think no matter what fight Conor gets booked with next, it's not going to be an easy fight for him. Donald Cerrone was probably like the most tailor-made guy for him in terms of just a name value guy that's a great style matchup for him. But I do sell on the idea that Conor gets a title shot upon his return. I think he needs one or two more wins before we get there.
Yeah, I would like to sell on it as a fan and get Justin Gaethje in there, but from a business perspective, it almost just seems like it's too perfect, whether it's going to be Poirier 4 or whether he gets a shot at Charles Oliveira, because with the size that Conor's walking around with right now and how skinny Charlie Olives is, that could be an interesting one for him. Jose Aldo, we covered that fight on the weekend over on Colorcast, AJ. We had a great time doing so. We watched the Jose Aldo fight. We called the Jose Aldo fight. Can he be a future bantamweight champion again? Buy or sell on his championship aspirations?
I sell on that idea. As long as Jan is in the division, I think it's going to be really, really tough for Aldo. I mean, we saw that fight not too long ago, and Aldo essentially had to fight a perfect fight to get Jan out of there. And he fought beautifully. He even took a round from Jan, but Jan is just like the Terminator in there. He's so durable. He's very technical. He's got the power advantage, the output advantage, the durability advantage over Aldo. And we saw just him pour it on Aldo late. So I think as long as Jan's there, it's going to be really tough to see Aldo as champion. You also have guys like Corey Sandhagen in the mix, Aljamain Sterling, TJ Dillashaw would be a good matchup. So even though Aldo's on this incredible run, I think that we're going to see him struggle more as he works his way up the ranks.
Yeah, I think the next fight to make is Aldo versus Dillashaw. But you know what? For argument's sake, I will buy that just because I want to see Aldo get that shot again. You said it. He's been Petr Yan's best fight, in my opinion. I think he did much better than Aljamain Sterling, because Aljamain Sterling was flopping around like a fish out of water before he got gifted that knee to the face. So, hey. But I'll buy that just because I'd like to see it again. I like Jose Aldo. I like what he's done. And I think the arc of his career, he was on the way down when he fought Petr Yan. A lot of people didn't think that he deserved that fight. It could be nice for him to fight his way back up and as a legend of the game, one of the OGs. Buy or sell, Kamaru Usman, fighter of the year.
I'll buy that. I think Kamaru has been quietly, or not so quietly, I guess, not quietly in my opinion, the most dominant fighter in the sport right now. He's been able to beat the best fighters bell to bell. Obviously, Colby fought him very good competitively, but Colby is dominating a lot of dudes on the reg usually too. So, Kamaru, when you look at his skill set, his striking has come a long way. He's very technical now. the most well-rounded fighter in the UFC, in my opinion. Dominant wrestling, top control. He's very durable and dangerous everywhere the fight goes. His output is tremendous. His cardio is next level. So for me, Kamaru Usman has been able to dominate fighters bell to bell, just in terms of just his round-around just upside, and also his finishing abilities as well.
I think there's an argument to be made in there. I'll go against you on that one, and I'll pick whoever wins this lightweight belt. I think whoever wins the lightweight belt on Saturday night will be the male fighter of the year. You got Dustin Poirier, the 2 defeats against Conor McGregor, a guy that really knocked him out quite emphatically a few years ago to get over that hump and then to come back. Obviously, McGregor broke his leg, but the facts are he won those fights, and he is fighting for a belt, an opportunity to win the belt back again. 3 fights in a year, you can't argue that. And then Charlie Olives, I'm sure we're going to get into that fight next, actually. We're going to break down this main event for you. Very few guys that have been through the UFC with more, I guess you could say, adversity. I mean, it's self-brought on adversity. He lost a bunch of fights early, almost cut from the – I believe if he was cut at one point, AJ. I'm not sure on that one. You can definitely hop in there. But for him to come back, Michael Chandler cleans his clock in the first round. Adversity, battles back, knocks out Michael Chandler, wins the lightweight world champion, really has his baby now. And now we can get into this fight, Charles Poirier versus Charles Poirier. You like that one? Charlie Olives versus Dustin Poirier. Man, I'm so excited for this fight, AJ. I think either one of these guys could be named fighter of the year. I'm not going against the Kamaru Usman pick, as I do think he is the greatest pound-for-pound fighter right now. But at the same time, I don't think Jorge Masvidal is the cream of the crop in that division. He fought him twice. I guess the Colby fight really pulls him back up for me, the fact that he did take that fight, and I believe Colby is the clear-cut number 1 contender. But again, as far as legacy goes, I think it's one of these 2 lightweights.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very interesting matchup here for the lightweight belts. Oliveira has worked his way up to the top after some adversity. He was at one point, 1-3 in his last 4 fights, and then he beat Clay Guida. And then ever since then, he's been on a winning streak. So the run that he's been on has been phenomenal. And now he's working his way up, and he's fighting arguably one of the most popular, if not the most popular fighter in the sport right now, in Dustin Poirier, with 2 wins over Conor McGregor. And Poirier is another one of these guys who he has dealt with his adversity as well. He had a loss to Michael Johnson back in 2016. Then he worked his way up the ranks. He had wins over Max Holloway, Justin Gaethje, Eddie Alvarez ×2. Well, there was a no contest in there, but you get what I mean. And then he lost to, what some consider the GOAT, Khabib Nurmagomedov. And then since then, he's won 3 in a row. From a monkey knife fight perspective, there's 89.5 strikes and then 52.5 strikes for Oliveira. I think this fight finishes, and I think it finishes within 3 rounds. My level of confidence in Oliveira taking that many strikes from Poirier is not that high. Not that he has a bad chin. It's just we have seen him melt under pressure. We have seen Poirier just really pour it on fighters, like against Gaethje. He even had Holloway on the ropes at several points in time. So his power and volume is next level. And on the flip side, Charlie Oliveira, also, again, 52.5 significant strikes. I know that's not asking for a lot, but he's typically not a high output fighter. 3.26 significant strikes landed per minute. That's okay. That's nothing spectacular. And I think his game plan is to try and take Poirier down, take his back, and try and choke him out. So I don't think Oliveira is just going to want to exchange all too much with Poirier when this fight is contested on the feet. And he has not topped 50 significant strikes in several years now. I don't think he's ever topped 50 significant strikes as I'm looking up and down the leaderboard, other than his fight with Nick Lentz back in 2015. So not a high output fighter. I want to take the less and less here and hope that a finish occurs.
Yeah, and those pitter-patter strikes that we talk about when we do these shows, AJ, don't really apply to Charles Oliveira's grappling game. I mean, Oliveira, he likes to move on the ground, but he's always moving for more submissions. He's always moving to advance that next position to lock in a finish. He's not necessarily buttering you up with those shots. We saw a few of them against Michael Chandler, but nothing. It was more to butter up Chandler to get loose of those wrists. And I'm glad you brought up the point that he wants to wrestle. Because one thing I noticed watching that Michael Chandler fight was that Oliveira did not have the physical strength to control Michael Chandler on the ground. If you do not have the physical strength to control Michael Chandler on the ground, Dustin Poirier is going to rip you to pieces. Poirier has a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's an excellent defensive jiu-jitsu artist. Plus, I reckon he would win an arm wrestle 10 times out of 10 against Charlie Olives. I know a lot of people, I think Charlie Olives has the more technical game plan. I think he's more technically well-rounded. I think he's got great counters. But at the end of the day, I'm with you, AJ. I think Dustin Poirier is going to go right through him. Hot take of the night: Poirier wins this belt by knockout inside 3 rounds. I'm with you, AJ. Give me the less and the less. I don't think Charlie Olives touches Dustin Poirier, and if he does, that's just going to make Poirier mad. Have you Poirier is one of those guys where you always, whenever you have money on him, you're always so nervous because he goes out, he throws his first combo, and then he's just huffing and puffing. But then, if you know Poirier, you know he does that for 5 full rounds, and he's just not going to go anywhere. Charles Olive, he's just not. Charlie Olives is going to be, he's going to be a cocktail olive by the end of this night. 3 cocktail olives deep in a Dustin Poirier martini. That's your pick. Poirier with the less, Charlie Olives with the less. Poirier's going to knock this fool out. Let's go. Dustin Poirier. Knockout. Emphatic. Charlie Olives is going to take him down. And once he gets him down, he's going to realize, oh shit, I can't do anything. Poirier's going to stand up and punch him once in the head, and he's going to fold down. The difference is it's not going to be Michael Chandler punching you in the head. It's going to be Dustin Poirier, who just knocked out McGregor twice. Do I sound passionate about this one?
You're very passionate. You're caffeinated. I mean, you're a lot more passionate than me on Poirier. I mean, I love Dustin Poirier. He's come through for me plenty of times. I've always considered him very, very underrated. But there are some, concerns I have for him in this matchup. I mean, for one, we haven't really seen him tested against that many grapplers, and when we have, he struggled at times. Against Eddie Alvarez in the rematch. Alvarez had him mounted against the fence, took his back. It wasn't until Eddie landed the illegal 12-6 elbow and separated that caused a loss of position there that Poirier was able to rally back and win. There's also the Dan Hooker fight where Hooker took him down 4 times, even took his back. Obviously, Khabib took him down, took his back as well. And even going back to the Anthony Pettis fight, I mean, I know Poirier is a good submission grappler and everything, but every time he gets taken down, he gives his back. And that's a huge concern against Charles Oliveira, who is one of the best back takers in the UFC. One of the best submission grapplers in the UFC, a 3rd-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And I do think that while Poirier is the better striker, Oliveira could certainly have his moments, and I think he's an underrated striker, and I do think he carries a decent amount of power as well. Offensively, he's got good Muay Thai. Again, the output isn't great, but it's okay. Again, he's long and rangy, but I'm not a big fan of Oliveira's defense. That's ultimately going to be, potentially his downfall on the feet. He just doesn't do a good job of moving his head off the center line, and that's not what you want to do against Poirier, who's one of these rare cases of, I have a lot of volume, but I also have a lot of power in my strikes as well. So on the feet, I have to favor Poirier, but I do think that Oliveira could have his moments. We have seen Poirier. He is moderately hittable himself. He can be hurt. And I do think that Oliveira has the power to damage him. But Oliveira's main path of victory here is land takedowns. He's very strong from the body lock position and take Poirier's back and maybe get a choke, if not right out rounds with control. So everybody, picking Poirier, I get it. He's a great fighter and everything. I also think that this is one of the tougher style matches for him in the division because he's not getting a guy who's pretty much exclusively going to strike with him, in which case I like Poirier in those types of fights. But Oliveira is a different type of animal in that regard. And I do think he is a much improved fighter than maybe he showed a few years ago and say some of his losses.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you on that. But then I go back to the point where he has Michael Chandler's back. He can't do anything with Michael Chandler's back. Michael Chandler can actually stand up, slam his back, eventually win the wrist controls battles. Well, Charles is on his back. And I think Dustin Poirier is a bigger, stronger man than Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler is extremely explosive, one of the stronger guys. And yes, I took Chandler in that fight actually, and it was going quite well. But we know Michael Chandler's chin isn't what it used to be. I just think if Michael Chandler drops you on the feet, Poirier is going to drop you on the feet. If you can't submit Michael Chandler when you have Michael Chandler's back for a better part of 2 minutes in that first round, you're not going to submit Poirier when you get his back. I think Poirier is just going to be too determined. Poirier is just going to be coming like a bat out of hell here. I think he knows that belt is his. I think he could have been fighting for the belt last year, but he picked the McGregor fight anyway. He picked the money fight. It's not a knock. I did say, and I do believe that Charles Oliveira is the more well-rounded mixed martial artist. There's no doubt there. But when it comes to those X factors that you can't really put a finger on, when it comes to Charlie Olive's chin, when it comes to Dustin Poirier's chin, when it comes to the heart, when it comes to the fact that Poirier is not going to just tap. I saw, yes, Khabib's a different story. I think Poirier is just going to rip through all of any sort of hold or lock he gets put in. He has such a good corner with Mike Brown. I believe in his coaching. I believe in his heart, and I believe in his skill set. I just don't think there's any way that Dustin Poirier doesn't leave with the gold strapped around his waist on Saturday night.
Yeah, fair. I think in general, the fight is very high variance. I think there's just many different ways it could go. When you look at Oliveira, dating back to his UFC debut back in August of 2010. He's only been the distance 3 times in that, time span. And, I was even seeing in an interview, I forgot who he gave it to. Maybe it was like James Lynch or somebody. They asked about Oliveira, going into the championship rounds, even while he has the belt, he just gave like a big X, like, I don't want to go in the championship round. So that's one thing we could always expect out of Oliveira. He's a threat on the feet, a threat on the ground, but he's also been known to fold at times when the pressure gets put on. And we even saw glimpses of that in round 1 against Chandler. So again, I'm not trying to say that Poirier can't make him fold, but I do think there's some credence to improvements in Oliveira. Maybe he's more mentally tough. I think this is just a fight that could go either way. It's a very competitive booking.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that he was probably grown as a fighter in the mental toughness, but I don't think there's any fighter as mentally tough as Dustin Poirier. And I would put money on that. I don't know how we'd ever measure that, but I think Dustin Poirier, we saw the comeback against Conor McGregor. We saw him believe that Conor couldn't beat him, and he walked out and annihilated him in that second fight. Didn't give him any chance to breathe. And when you take away Charlie Olive's time and space, he literally folds and crumbles onto his back. We saw that against Chandler in the last fight when Chandler clipped him. Olive's automatically went onto his back and started to play that pitter-patter defense. And Chandler looked pretty good there. So I think this is a Dustin Poirier. Win. Any way you cut it, AJ. I respect the other side. I think this is just one of those ones where I'm going to be looking at a pretty even, moderate picks and make some good money on Saturday night riding with Dustin Poirier. I really feel very, very confident in Poirier. Now we're up with Amanda Nunes and her next victim. Juliana Pena. Less and less. First round knockout. This one, so you remember that confidence that I had in Dustin Poirier about 5 minutes ago? Imagine that times 1 billion. Amanda Nunes knockout. Under less. This fight isn't going past the 2-minute mark. If Juliana Pena actually thinks she can throw with Amanda Nunes, which I've been watching the build-ups to this fight. She's training out of Illinois. I forget what town it is, but she looks hard. She looks mean. She's like, yeah, I feel so good. I'm so confident you're going to get absolutely shit kicked.
Well, there you have it. I figured as much. If you were that confident in Poirier, you'd be even more confident in Nunes. I always try to make a case for the other side, and it's just really tough for me to make a case for Pena here. On the feet, Nunes is a much better striker. She's more technical. She's more defensively sound, more dangerous, higher volume as well. Pena is just very flat-footed on the feet, just doesn't have a good head movement, just kind of plods forward. I think that plays right into Nunes's hands. She probably lands a big overhand right and gets a quick knockout. So I'm with you on the less and less. Even if this fight goes to the ground, I think it's a mismatch and one that Nunes could even finish the fight early. Pena defense takedowns at a rate of 23%. It was just 2 fights ago where she was submitted by Germaine de Randamie, a kickboxer. De Randamie even reversed her prior to the submission. So again, de Randamie is improving in that regard. But again, if that was able to happen, Nunes, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, a judo practitioner, also a good offensive and defensive wrestler, should be able to get this fight to the ground, advance an amount, and probably get a stoppage as well. So yeah, it's Nunes all day here. It's just, again, her flaw, I guess if you want to call it one, and it's just like more so speculation, is complacency. She's just so good. Maybe she just underestimates her opponent. But I don't like to think like that. She's clearly the better talent, more well-rounded, more dangerous everywhere the fight goes. This is a total mismatch of a fight, and that's why the odds are not competitive at all.
Yeah, something to note for that Nunes corner, folks. For the first time ever, she's got her daughter and her wife traveling with her. Like, both of them will be there. I don't think, I follow her on Instagram pretty closely. So it's the first time ever that she's going to have her daughter in the audience. So I don't think she's going to let Regan Nunes down that night. So I would expect a pretty big, emphatic win. Although the baby won't remember it. Regan's like, what, 2, 1? But hey, mama ain't losing this belt, honey. No way, Jose. Yeah, it's less and less.
Because we're knockout, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be Nunes is just any way she wants. Lioness, rip her to shreds, feed her to her young. Oh, God, I'm getting a little aggressive. Caffeine just doesn't. How did you like that victim, that intro line? I think that's a good way to start off the Knockout Kings contest, too, folks. It's been a while since we've done it. $2,500. All you need to do is select 3 fighters. All 3 of your fighters score a knockout. You're in to win your share of the $2,300. Give me Amanda Nunes, because there's going to be a homicide committed on Saturday night, and it's going to be Nunes killing somebody. Give me Dustin Poirier. Thank you very much. And there's a few other ones in here. If you don't feel comfortable with the Dustin Poirier pick, Sean O'Malley's great. I think Jeffneal getting locked up with a Dewey makes Santiago Ponzinibio a good look. Jeffneal getting locked up with a Dewey during training camp, and a legal firearm possession, spending time in prison when he's supposed to be training, clearly drinking. Something's wrong there. So Ponzinibio is a good one. I actually like Kai Kara France in the knockout spot too. Cody Garbrandt cutting some weight. He's been chinny as of late. I think Kai Kara France actually has a cheeky knockout. But those three on the board right there are my three go-tos. AJ, did I spark anything with you while I was talking? Anything come up there? Who would you look for your knockout kings?
Yeah, on this week, I think there's a lot of options you could choose from. I think the ones that you chose are perfectly fair. I'm going to go a little bit more contrarian, though. One of which I think we could agree on is Bruno Silva. He's a very violent fighter. Very dangerous, 2 for 2 with knockouts so far in the UFC. And he's facing Jordan Wright, who has very bad defense on the feet. He keeps his hands low and his head on the center line. And he's been knocked out twice professionally. He got knocked out by Anthony Hernandez in the Contender Series. And he also got knocked down twice and knocked out, actually put out in the second round by Joaquin Buckley. So I think with Silva's aggressiveness and power on the feet, it plays right into, quick knockout here based on the bad defense of Wright. Another one is Alex Perez. He's going against Matt Schnell, who's been knocked out in the vast majority of his losses. He just doesn't have good durability. Even in fights that go the distance, Schnell still gets rocked, like against Marco Beltran. Perez does throw hard on the feet, even though he's not doesn't have a bunch of knockouts on his resume. Good low kicks, good kicks at distance, fast hands, aggressive early. The Jose Shorty Torres fight showed that. So he's going to be one for me. Lastly is Tai Tuivasa, the heavyweight fight. Tai, as we know, has a lot of power. I know you're a big fan of him. Bam Bam, the shoey man, for those that don't know. And he's taking on Augusto Sakai, who's been knocked out in back-to-back fights. I think Tuivasa will have a clear speed advantage, athleticism advantage, power advantage. And I just haven't liked how Sakai's looked his last 2 fights. He just looks so off. Just in terms of just his lack of output, 2 big tests in front of him, and he just completely fails both of them. Just wasn't too competitive at all until like Overeem was just shelling near the fence. So, I like Tuivasa in this spot to get a knockout. He's got heavy hands, and that's basically his MO, is to go out there and do damage early. And all of his UFC wins, except for one, are by knockout.
AJ, who is your third? So I have Bruno, Tai, and
Alex Perez.
Nice. Look at this. We have 6 options for knockout kings.
And there's more too.
Options.
I love the Tai Tuivasa one because I picked up something on Augusto Sakai where I think Augusto Sakai is a bully. Where I think if he thinks he's the better fighter, he's going to go out and chase you down. Against Alistair Overeem and Jairzinho Rozenstruik, he looked like a biatch. He looked scared. He looked like he did not want to be there. And Tai Tuivasa is not the guy you want to trade with. I'll never say that to Augusto Sakai's face, by the way. Like, I would never say that to his face, but I would be like, hey, is there something why you're a little more scared of these big striking guys that can knock you out and why you just bully everybody else? And I think we're going to see something similar to that on Saturday. Don't be surprised if he comes in looking very tentative and Tai Tuivasa walks right through him. I didn't really want to touch that one because I am a big Tai Tuivasa fan, and I didn't want to sound like a little bit of fandom. AJ, any other good-looking fights that you're looking across Monkey Knife Fight and go, dang, that's an attractive-looking line there?
Yeah, let's go to the fight between Aaron Blanchfield and Miranda Maverick. One angle that I like to attack just in general across the industry on these pay-per-views is, the non-main card fights. People just don't gravitate towards them as much, and I think that's where the edge is to be had. And in this fight with Blanchfield and Maverick, I think we see a striking affair here, and it takes place for all 15 minutes. It's projected to go that way. They're both very tough, and I think we see more and more here. Yeah, both women are high output on the feet, especially Blanchfield. She landed 120 significant strikes in 3 rounds in her debut. She's not the best technical striker, but again, she's very aggressive. She has a high pace and she has good cardio. And Maverick is down and throw down as well. We saw that in really all of her fights in the UFC so far. She doesn't have the best head movement, but very good with her defense, her footwork specifically. She's the more technical fighter, in my opinion, also can have a physicality advantage, but Blanchfield should hang tough and should make it a scrap here. So I like the more and more here. I think both ladies are going to stand and trade in the middle of the octagon. I think they're both durable enough to take each other's power shots.
Yeah, I really like that pick. I think that's going to be one of those underlying cards because both those ladies are extremely good. I think they have 4 losses combined on their professional records. So obviously a battle of top-touted prospects. And one that I want to take a look at is the Kai Kara France Cody Garbrandt fight. I know I mentioned the Cody. Yeah, I think I have a bit of a different read than most people on this fight. I think that a lot of people are seeing Cody Garbrandt as the bigger man, which he clearly is. He's going to come in and maybe try to bully Kai Kara France around the octagon. But something that I want to note is that these flyweights, I think I have a lot more respect for these flyweights than these bantamweights do. going down and thinking that they can cut that weight and their chins are going to hold up. We saw it against TJ Dillashaw. Arguably, TJ Dillashaw looking the best he's ever looked on EPO, gets absolutely crop dusted in the first round by Henry Cejudo. I think Kai Kara France is going to go out and knock out Cody Garbrandt pretty quickly. I'm going to take the less and the less here, first round knockout, because I don't see the strikes compiling. I don't think Garbrandt's going to be able to handle the speed of Kai Kara France on the inside. Garbrandt has just been getting knocked out left, right, and center. Obviously Rob Font didn't knock him out, but he got outstruck pretty handily in that fight. Knocked out by Pedro Munhoz, knocked out by Dillashaw twice. So 3 out of his last 4 losses have come by way of knockout loss. And I think Kai Kara France is a gamer. I think he's a dog. So a bit of a cheeky upset pick there, but give me the less and the Kai Kara France finish.
Yeah, it makes sense. I actually am going to go less and less, but for a different reason. I actually think we see this fight play out. And I think that they're very tentative to engage with one another because of their power threat. They respect each other's power threat and counter boxing abilities. It is one that it's tougher for Reed. I leaned with Kara France because he's got a reach advantage. There's just less red flags on him. He's also generally got a higher pace than Garbrandt. But Garbrandt should have more punching power of the two. He should have the faster hands. And we have seen Kara France get dinged several times in the past, like Brandon Royval, as well as Elias Garcia. So even though I'm picking him to win, my level of confidence in that outcome isn't super high because I definitely respect the threats that Garbrandt brings. But at the same time, Garbrandt dropping down another 10 pounds, like you said, he hasn't been durable as is. Maybe it affects his durability, cardio a little bit more so. I don't know. To me, it just seems like Cody at this point is just trying to make like one last hurrah and trying to find his footing in a weight class, where he was the previous champion, try and gain back the momentum. Maybe it works out for him fine, but it just seems like he's been losing some steam recently with his one win in the past few years coming against Rafael Assunção, who's at the end of his run, and we haven't seen him fight since. So I like the less and less here. I think Kara France probably wins the decision actually.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Kara France win. Obviously, I kind of put down my opinion on it, and back to that Assunção knockout. I got to tip my cap to Cody Garbrandt though, because that was vicious. There's probably a reason why he hasn't fought since in that one. On the back end there, Jason, do you mind taking us over to a more grappling featured bout? It's Ryan Hall versus Derek Minner. Ryan Hall, let me tell you
one expressions in all of MMA.
It's just
so interested.
If you like your knee ligaments where they are, don't mess with Ryan Hall. Also,
nobody wants to fight this dude, by the way. Like, it's impossible. Sorry, go on, Cutter. Let's show him the sweatshirt.
It's happy holidays. We don't do these shows every week now, so when we do, this is our holiday edition. Merry fucking Christmas, everybody. Mr. McGregor and I are wishing you all a very Merry Christmas. All right, Ryan Hall, Derek Minner. I'm going to take the less in this one because I think Ryan Hall gets a submission. I think these guys are going to roll on the ground for a bit. I don't trust Derek Minner. His ability to roll with Ryan Hall. I think Ryan Hall is going to catch him kind of like an anaconda does, like a goat, and just twist him up and rip his knee ligaments to shreds. I don't think Derek Minner has the best chin. Obviously, he's been knocked out. He's been submitted twice as well inside the UFC. And I just like Ryan Hall to get a hold of him and force the submission out.
Yeah, either the fight finishes, in which case this probably goes less and less, or it gets extended and there's just not that many exchanges. Ryan Hall's got this funny style where he just wants to stand around on the outside, move laterally, and throw all these karate-based kicks. As a result, he only lands 2.3 significant strikes per minute and absorbs 1.22. And Minner isn't high output himself, 2.96 landed per minute, 1.63 absorbed. Minner is like kill or be killed in the octagon. 34 of his 38 professional fights have gone under the 2.5 round mark. And like you said, Hall should have submission grappling edge. Minner is going to be very dangerous early. Maybe he puts Hall in some trouble, but Hall should be wise to it. He's one of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners in the business. So yeah, I'm with you. I think Hall probably goes out there and gets a quick submission, a heel hook specifically. Even though Minner has said in interviews that he expects a slow pace, the fight to play out, I don't think he's going to be able to help himself. Like, that's all Minner knows how to do is just engage on the ground, right? So I just think that whether he comes in with that mentality or not, his instincts will just, oblige to the style of jumping into Hall's guard, in which case Hall probably gets a submission anyway. So I'm with you on the less and less.
Yeah, and I get that Ryan Hall is coming off the knockout loss of Ilia Topuria, but I think Topuria is the real deal. I mean, 3-0 in the UFC. I think he's like a top-touted prospect, 2 knockouts. And then outside of that fight, Hall's defense has looked really good. Artem Lobov, They went 15 minutes, landed 2 significant strikes. And we all know Artem Lobov is the greatest fighter of all time.
I mean, for sure.
So, BJ Penn, first round heel hook finish. So it went over the 2-minute 30 mark, only landed 3 significant strikes. So Ryan Hall knows what he's doing. I just think his nickname, the Wizard, is so fitting because he just looks like he's condescending. He looks like he doesn't want to be there. And it's just like, yeah, I'm just going to rip your freaking ligaments apart. I'm going to take my paycheck. I'm probably going to go home, smoke a dart, and have a beer. That's what he looks like, the kind of guy that just a dart after the fight. You know what I'm saying? AJ's just rolling his eyes.
Second greatest fighter since Dylan Dennis, of course.
Yeah. Dylan Dennis is the worst thing to happen to mixed martial arts. I hate Dylan Dennis. And that I will say to your face, Dylan Dennis, if you ever tune into a monkey knife fight, stop whatever it is you're doing and get back fighting again because you're actually a talent and you're just so annoying. You're like the Jake Paul of the MMA world. Boom. Now, that actually was pretty good. AJ, any other fights that you just want to lock in on here? I could talk about any one of them. I spent my whole day yesterday watching tape, watching other analysts.
Can we do Suga Show? I'm just because I'm curious what you guys think.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, well, I had him in my knockout contest. So let's bring up the Suga Show OMalley. I mean, Paiva, pardon me, he's good. 21-3. You can't overlook him. But I think this is AJ and I were talking about this actually on air, and I was kind of saying, look, Paiva's a dog. He's a good guy. He's a good fighter. And AJ was like, Connor, I think you need to go watch some tape and settle down here because Sugar's going to win this one. I went and watched some tape. Suga Show OMalley's just going to hit him and stick to the outside and move. I think OMalley wins this one. I think he knocks him out. But Paiva is not to be messed with, you know. Landing over 4 significant strikes per minute, absorbing almost 5. He's not afraid to take one to give one. So Sugar's got to be careful. But the fact that Suga Show OMalley's like not celebrating doing basketball shots, like in the fight, dribbling a ball, like he's levels above these guys. And he wouldn't take a fight at this point in his career unless he wanted it. He said he's waiting for that money contract to take those bigger fights. So I think he's picking and choosing. And I think he did a nice little picking and choosing after further analysis of myself, courtesy of AJ Schullo.
Yeah, and I like OMalley here as well, right? You know, it's a striking fight. Paiva's an okay wrestler, but OMalley's actually an underrated grappler. He holds a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We saw in his last fight, his choke game was on display a little bit there, and he's got a good get-up game. On the feet, I think it's a mismatch. Again, Paiva is very tough. He comes forward, he throws in high volume. But one thing I noticed with Paiva is he relies pretty much exclusively on his length, in range management for defense. That helped him at flyweight where he's a lot taller than these guys. I don't think it's going to work as effectively at 135 where these guys are just as long, if not longer than him in the case of OMalley. O'Malley's can have 3 inches, a couple inches of height, 3 inches of reach. And when I watch the two of them fight, I think O'Malley's more technical at range. I think he's more varied striker, more defensively sound, and has a higher pace than Paiva. So, and we saw in that last fight against Moutinho, I know Moutinho got hit a bunch of times, but what I saw from O'Malley that I really liked was he landed 240 significant strikes in less than 15 minutes. That is tremendous output. I think that'll pay dividends for him as the fight goes with Paiva, just kind of a stationary movement, lacking head movement. I think that means that OMalley racks up a bunch of volume as the fight progresses, maybe gets a stoppage, but I lean Paiva's really tough and survives. I like the Suga Show to roll here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on the Suga Show to roll. Jason, can we see what the numbers are if you don't mind?
Less and less, boys. Sorry, I missed the.
Well, we got to. What are the numbers there?
Because, I didn't pull them up. I'm sorry. 85.5 and 51.5.
See, I think Paiva can land. I think Paiva can get over that, actually. I think Paiva's tough. We both kind of said it. I think this could be a striker's paradise. And if it does finish, I think it's going to be later. So I'm going to take the more and more on that as it stands. If it goes over 100 strikes on Suga Show, that's where I'd start to be cognizant. Nice. But under 100 strikes, I think is the safe play on the more. As for Paiva, I think under 70 strikes is a safe play. OMalley isn't the easiest guy to hit, but he does absorb a few shots per minute, and I think Paiva is going to come out aggressive and knows what's on the line here. This is a fight that everyone's going to be watching because of the polarizing figure that Suga Show OMalley has turned himself into. Also, his birthday is on October 24th, same as me. So let's go to Vegas and party. One other fight that I did want to touch on before we get out of here, because one of the OGs, we talked about Jose Aldo, former WEC champion. Dominick Cruz is on this card, the Dominator. Pedro Munhoz versus Dominick Cruz. And dare I say I like Dominick Cruz.
Let's go.
Here's why. Pedro Munhoz is very good at swarming guys and getting them against the fence. And once he gets them against the fence, he can land his power shots, and that's where he has success. We saw it against Garbrandt. We've seen it in multiple fights. Good luck getting Dominick Cruz against the fence. Like, I think Dominick Cruz's footwork is going to piss Munhoz off. I think he's going to tire down trying to swing at these leg kicks that are going to be missing. And Cruz is just going to slowly outpoint him and win this fight via decision. So I'm going to take the less on Munhoz, as I think Cruz is too hard to hit. I'm going to take the more on Cruz, as I think Cruz boxes his way to a decision here with his radical movement. I understand he's old. I just said he's an OG. Like Jose Aldo, Dominick Cruz, Uriah Faber, like that original class of those guys from the 145-pound division and up. These are the guys I'm talking about. The flight is so much fun to watch. And I think Dominick Cruz in that last performance, I believe it was Casey Kenny. He looked pretty solid, picked him apart. I like another solid showing from Dominick Cruz for the same reason with the Sugar Sean O'Malley fight. I don't think Dominick Cruz would take a fight he doesn't like if he didn't see something that he could exploit. Pedro Munhoz, I think he's a bull. He's a beast. He's lost 3 out of 4, however, and I see his movement. Dominick Cruz's movement being too much for Pedro Munhoz, and I like it to be similar to the Aldo fight where Aldo stuck to the outside and outstruck him and won the fight. So give me that. That's my read, AJ. Hot take, I know, but I'm full of those today.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I think Cruz is the favorite. I think he should be favorite at least. I mean, he's the better striker in a fight.
Is he a favorite now? Because he was an underdog, and then I saw it at a pick'em. It depends where you're getting your lines, I guess.
Yeah, it's like a pick'em mostly. He's an underdog on DraftKings. That's the main one I use. But regardless, I think he should be favored. Like, he's the better striker in a fight contested on the feet. Cruz is a better wrestler than Munhoz. Munhoz is a very good guillotine specialist, but not a good wrestler. Cruz is better footwork, in my opinion, better defense as a result. He just moves his head much more, whereas Munhoz is very durable, much more durable than Cruz, but he leaves his head completely on the center line. And as a result, he absorbs 6.02 significant strikes per minute. And I'm actually going to differ with you a little bit here. I actually like the more and more on both guys. In 3 of Munhoz's past 4 fights, he's landed more than 91 significant strikes. Against Jose Aldo, he landed 75, so that was less. And Cruz is hard to hit, yes. But I think he's a little bit easier to hit at this point in his career now that he's just dealt with some injuries. Again, he's on the older side for the weight class, and he's coming off a fight against Casey Kenny where he absorbed 74 significant strikes. Munhoz is generally more active than Kenny. He's got those calf kicks, the front kicks that are dangerous from range. So I think we see a fight play out here. I think it goes 3 rounds, and I think that there's a lot of volume exchanged on both sides where Cruz probably gets the better of those exchanges.
Yeah, you see this. I don't see a finish coming in this one, AJ. I see it playing out, and I really respect your side with the Munhoz side of things. But my thing is, if you can't hit Jose Aldo, who doesn't have the greatest footwork, he likes to stand and bang, and we saw that on the weekend. He'll take one to trade one, and it worked against Rob Font. And if you're getting outstruck 114 to 74, I think it was, or 118 to 74, I think Dominick Cruz has your number. I understand Cruz is a little older, but I think Cruz, his sporadic movement, Cruz is just so hard to fight. I've never fought him, but you can see guys really taking the reads. The only guy that's ever had the dominant success against him is Cody Garbrandt, who figured it out. And I don't think Munhoz is going to figure it out in a 3-round fight. So I like the fight to go long. I think the over 1.5 rounds is a solid play if you're betting at home. But yeah, Dominick Cruz in an underdog position is just a sweet pick for me. I had to talk about that guy, AJ, Jason. I had to get Dominick Cruz in here because he is the dominator. Yeah, he is just so awesome. So any other fights that we should touch on here, guys, because it's like just such a stacked card. Randy Costa is going to win by knockout. I got that one there too. If we need another knockout king, Tony Kelly does not have the defense there. So we can take the less and less on that, in my opinion. But hey, what do I know? Jillian Robinson, cited, Canada's very own, dyes her hair red. Should have a good start to the card. You know what? One more fight to talk about because I kind of alluded to it earlier. Can we pull up the Jeffneal versus Santiago Ponzinibio? What a fight. Perfect. So we'll touch every fight on the main card here. Hands of Steel Neal probably should be favored. I think he's just, the guy needs to turn it on. He looks so good sometimes, looks so bad. Neil Magny, he got absolutely dominated on the mat. Stephen Thompson dominated him on the feet. Yeah, you beat Mike Perry, but at that point, Mike Perry's coach was his girlfriend. So whatever that says. And you just got a Dewey in training camp. A Dewey. I think Ponzinibio knocks him out, goes out there. Ponzinibio is just he starts so fast. he does slow down as the fight goes on, but I think if Ponzinibio can get in Neal's face and really get him breathing, getting the alcohol sweats coming out, I think Ponzinibio can have this one, folks. So I think that's a cheeky one that a lot of people are looking at Jeffneal's skill set. They're not really looking on his mental health right now. What's going on, Jeffneal? In all seriousness, man, I hope you get feeling better, because obviously some things got to be going on for you to be doing that in camp, buddy. So all the best to you. Hopefully you stay strong. But as far as this fight goes, I got to take Ponzinibio by an early finish.
Yeah, he's no longer Genchi Boa. He is the Argentine Dagger. I was surprised when the nickname changed. Interesting.
Well, I couldn't say the other one, so I'm good with Argentine Dagger.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's an upgrade, honestly. But anyway, as it pertains to the Monkey Knife fight, yeah, I mean, from a prediction standpoint, I feel obligated to pick Ponzinibio because of the red flags on Neal. And he also just hasn't looked good since coming back from that life-threatening illness that he had. Ponzinibio has had a life-threatening illness as well. After he fought Neil Magny, he took a lot of time off and then just didn't look so great fighting Li Jingliang. But I thought he looked better against Baeza. And just, again, the focus level, you don't have to worry about that on the Ponzinibio side. He's training an American top team. I see his Instagram. He's working hard. He's a very densely muscled guy for the weight class, but he has good cardio, a good pace. I'm actually going to go more and more here. I could see the knockout happening either way, and this is going to be a sweaty one. But typically Santiago fights at a high pace on the feet, 4.65 significant strikes landed per minute. He absorbs 4.38. He's coming off of a slugfest of a fight with Miguel Baeza where he landed 121 strikes, over significant strikes, mind you, over 15 minutes, and Baeza landed 104. So Neal's capable of pushing a high pace himself, 4.42 landed per minute. It is one where I side with Ponzinibio, but I think we see the more and more happen here from a Monkey Knife fight perspective.
Yeah, honestly, I just can't trust a guy who's gotten a Dewey in camp and a illegal firearms possession to have the cardio, have the mental wherewithal to want to push later into a fight. That Ponzinibio, the Argentine Dagger nickname's good because that guy's just a double-ended sword. He's going to eat the shot to land a shot, and he's going to hurt you. And if Jeffneal doesn't want to be in there, or if there's any sort of mental stigma where it's hey, this isn't going well, I think Ponzinibio could just fold him. Obviously, that's something more of the mental side of games, AJ. So I definitely like your pick there. And then, folks, take Ponzinibio if you're at home, because there's clearly something going on. And thank you all so much for joining us. Jason, AJ, any other fights that we want to touch on before we get out of here?
I think we're good. We covered
every single one except the Munhoz-Anders fight, and Munhoz is just going to out-grapple Anders. So,
yeah, maybe. I mean, his jiu-jitsu is really good. I'm a little worried about him slowing down in an extended fight, but yeah, he could put Anders in trouble early for sure. We touched a little bit before we went on air with Josh Emmett and Dan Ige. I agree that Emmett should be the favorite. My only concern, and it's a big one, is Emmett is now 36 and he's coming into this fight off of a lot of serious injuries. I know that he's been saying in interviews this is the best shape of his career. That's good to hear. But again, the layoff coupled with all that is a big concern for me. But I do think he should be favored nonetheless. A better striker than Ige, and he lands with more power. But 50K Dan, as we know, is very tough. He's scrappy. He comes to fight as well. So that should be a fun fight. And that's just another example of we've got a stacked card because those two fights who are ranked for featherweight are on the prelims of all things, right? And then we mentioned Cruz and Munhoz, two ranked bantamweights, Sakai and Tuivasa ranked heavyweights.
Yeah. What is this card?
It's a stacked one.
Give me these, any of those as a headliner for any of the last couple of fight nights that we've been covering, AJ, because they're all such great fights. I'm so excited for Ty Tuivasa with the Shui. Obviously, I'll be there right with them. Dominick Cruz, Josh Emmett. I love your read there. To Emmett's age, though, I think being out of the octagon, he hasn't absorbed so many head strikes. 36 years old, yes, but in a fighter's perspective, much younger than a 36-year-old Jose Aldo, I would say, for due to damage done. And plus, if you can take 120 shots from Shane Burgos, I have confidence in your ability to eat some shots from Dan Ige. So that's really where my confidence is coming from with the Emmett side of things. Folks, wow, we did it. Almost an hour show, Monkey Knife fight, UFC 269, holiday season. AJ, I love seeing that smile on your face, man. I miss you.
I miss you too, buddy. Even with the color casts that we've had in the meantime, it's been a long time. The last card we did on Monkey Knife Fight Live was Holloway versus Rodriguez. But yeah, this is the last pay-per-view of the event of the year, folks. So yeah, it's a fun time. Looking forward to 2022. Again, go out there, keep crushing it. We love seeing those screenshots, even though we only get them on occasion. But again, it's a fun platform for you guys to, enjoy the fights, make some money, and just, have fun with them from a fan perspective. So cheers, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and don't be afraid to smash away on that like button, or smish, I should say.
Smish. Chazmat Shemaev. And but yeah, before we go, AJ, just because you brought up the Hazmat thing, what do you think is next for Hazmat? Just because he is a big talking point, I'm sure every fan that's watching this would love to pick your mind on that.
Yeah, I think the matchup with Neil Magny makes a ton of sense. Neil Magny's been wanting that fight, and then you look at the resume; they both have wins over Li Jingliang, where they essentially outgrappled him. And I think that's the right way you want to build up Khamzat, right? We know he's so tremendously talented, but as he starts to work his way up towards the top 15 guys of the division, it's going to be a slow buildup, I think, to really make sure that if he's ready to take on the belt holders, in the next maybe year or so, or maybe even sooner. So I think what they're doing right now, they're building him up in the right way. They're giving him the right step ups. And I think the right guy to test him next would be a guy like Neil Magny.
All right, folks. Well, we covered the previous stuff on the UFC. We covered literally every single fight on UFC 269, giving you our best Monkey Knife Fight picks and plays across the platform from a DFS perspective. Any questions, you guys know how to reach us at AJ Schullo, at Sports Retreat. That's how you find us. Any questions on Twitter at Monkey Knife Fight. That's where we'll be. We'll be hanging out, and we're always down to chop shop with you guys. So make sure any questions you reach out, comments to hold us accountable, because I know there's gonna be a couple of Charlie Olive fans coming at me hard after this one. But guess what, guys? Poirier is gonna win. I'm Connor Rowntree. That's AJ Schullo, and remember to hit it hard. Poirier, knockout.